Hi again. Welcome, my uh, audience. We have a new guest today, Jamie from Main Street Bank. Hi, Jamie. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Anurag. How are you?
I'm doing good, Jamie. Firstly, thank you for joining me today on a Friday afternoon. That's 2:30 p.m. when people are winding up. Still, you're kind enough to join us to do a quick chat. We appreciate that.
Thank you. No, I'm happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we are equally excited, right? So, everyone, Jamie is the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Digital at Main Street Bank. Now, she has more than 2 decades of experience leading high performance marketing teams at Community Bank. So, Jamie is like a true blue community banker throughout her life. She started with a community bank, right now leading marketing for another community bank. So, she's one of the veterans, I would say, in the community banking industry. Uh, at her current bank at Main Street, she leads advertising, digital marketing, community involvement, like anything that's consumer facing, right? Jamie leads that. And we were chatting earlier with her, involvement with NEFMA. So uh, for everyone, Jamie is the president of NEFMA. Uh, I'm sure a lot of my audience would know what NEFMA is, but people who do not know what NEFMA is, NEFMA is New England Financial Marketing Association. It's a voluntary association of marketers in the New England area, right? And they're an amazing group of marketers I have known. It's so coincidental, Jamie. We were just chatting earlier. I mean, Jamie is the fourth leader in NEFMA. I'm interviewing in my podcast. I started with Sonia from Webster, then again Kerry, then Janelle, now Jamie. So I've interviewed technically four CMOs of NEFMA in the last 2 months. This is fantastic, Jamie. I hope I could do a quick justice of your introduction. If not, why don't you go ahead and add anything if I've missed out?
No, thank you, Anurag. And you have to be the first person to shed light on the length of my career and calling it 2 decades. It makes you kind of pause and think about that. But I wouldn't be here if I didn't love it. And, it just is a testament to what community banking means to so many people. I think there's a lot of people in the community bank and credit union space that have a similar tenure. I think they find that space that they love, that company that they love, and
Mhm.
grow within it. So that was the case with me. I'm sure you've spoken to other women that have had a similar story where they started as a teller, right on the ground, right on the front lines of
Exactly.
banking, and worked their way through. And that was my situation as well. I worked as a teller and worked in all kinds of different departments and got a lot of exposure to many areas of banking, which I think has served me pretty well to be able to understand, the customer situation, the banking environment, what our employees go through on a regular basis. And it's allowed me to grow in my career here. So, thank you again for kind of giving the down and dirty description.
That I mean, these interviews are usually the best where I interview a CMO or a CEO who's become a teller. The journey from a teller to becoming a leader within an organization. That's fantastic because you've seen all the nine yards. You've seen all aspects of the bank. You've seen all aspects of the business from lending to deposits to operations, contact centers. You've seen the entire thing, right? Now with a holistic knowledge of that understanding, when you become a leader, first you become an authentic leader, right? Because you know how things work, right? And less of, I mean, I call it less of vapor, less of fluff. You know exactly what happens. And then marketing is so strategic, right? You need to know how businesses work. You cannot just talk about clicks and impressions because those are of yesterday, right? Today you talk about actual revenue impact, and that can only happen if you have seen the nine yards in the banking space. So that's really great, and I think this discussion would be really good, right? Let's move into the next part of it, right? So Jamie, everyone wants to know what is your background, what has been the journey so far the last 2 decades.
Yeah, so like I said, I did start as a teller and worked in different departments of the bank. And I think a lot of my journey has just been asking questions and kind of trying to figure out things that are going on in the organization, in the industry, and learn about that. So, even from my early on in my career, I'd kind of always take the approach of how can I, relate this back to, what I've studied in school, what I am passionate about. So at the time when I was in school, I loved, writing, editing, communications, everything around the journalism, like those pieces. And I was in a job just to have a job at the time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I thought to myself, how can I, spin this in a way that plays to my skills? And so I would raise my hand and say, is there, projects I can do that might help support, the bank and also play into those skills that I have? And I will date myself here, but that's fine. We're doing that, I guess, for this podcast. My very first marketing project with the bank, and it's the bank that I am still at, was coming up with a strategy to set up a company Facebook page. And that was the era that we were in at the time. That was the new, frontier for community banks is, should we be on social media? What does this mean for us? What should this look like? And so me coming, fresh out of college was like, well, let me explore into that and understand what that might do for us. And lo and behold, we put that into our strategy. And many years later, it's evolved quite a bit. But that's just, one example of what I've done to set the stage for my own career growth. And I always say this to new hires that we have here at Main Street Bank is, don't just let your current position dictate what your future position is going to be. It could be anything. And if you're with the right company, they'll find that place for you. If you're good at what you do, passionate about it, and always willing to take that next step and raise your hand, you're going to find a spot that you're going to be really happy with.
Absolutely, I think that's the center stage of what we do, and absolutely appreciate it. Right now, again, a question piggybacking to your experience altogether so far, right? I believe again. Leaders are born leaders, right? You cannot just define leadership with the number of experience you have or how big a team is that. Yesterday I was chatting with another guest of mine, and we were exactly the same conclusion that leaders are what you become, right? You can lead without title. When I was 23, I didn't have a team reporting to me, but I was technically leading a team of 10 in consulting. I was a kid, right? But people appreciated that. So I also understood that you don't need to have title to become a leader. So I'll ask you a question specifically towards leadership because you've done leadership for years now, right? So what are your typical philosophies of being a leader, Jamie, that you followed throughout your career? If you can shed some light and talk about that, it will be of good value addition to my audience.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. And I think, you and I talked a little bit about this earlier in terms of philosophies. And one thing I found is, and this isn't going to be groundbreaking, but sometimes it's surprising how much it is lacking out there when I talk to people. But mutual respect for one another is, it's table stakes, but it's the foundation too. And I've found that if I can approach anybody, it doesn't matter what their role is or what their position in relation to mine is in the organization. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to respect your opinion, and I want to hear what you have to say. And that has served me very well because I pride myself on people trusting me throughout the organization, and that's also a result of a great example that I've gotten, as I've learned from other, really great leaders in my career. But also creating connections, because people remember that. And when you do become a leader, those people that you've created connections with along the way are going to respect you even more. So I think just respecting each other, having that foundation, that's, level one. And I'm a big believer in, autonomy. I can't stand micromanagement. I don't know who does like that. There are people, and that's great if it works for you. I don't know who it works for long term, but that is not the way that I operate as a leader.
Yes.
And I think this goes hand in hand with trust and respect, right? I trust you as, whether you're my direct report or somebody else in the organization, I trust you to be doing your job, fulfilling your role, and doing
Absolutely.
what's expected of you that first, and I think that goes a long way as well. And then one of the things that you mentioned, and I completely agree, is growth, and setting, the stage for growth and helping people understand what they can do
Yep.
as they progress their career. Because I think, if you have at least an idea of ways that you can grow or what you need to do to get there, you're going to be more apt to be engaged and committed into having that growth instead of being, left in the dark and not really sure. And nobody really feels comfortable or secure when that's the environment that you're in. So I think those three things are probably like the biggest things that I've, implemented into my leadership style. And I'm learning still. I think, I guess you got to always be willing to learn and willing to humble yourself
Yep.
when you make a mistake. And that's another thing. Like a good leader, they're going to own a mistake right away. They make it safe and set that example for their team and recognize, hey, I still can improve and do better. And those
Exactly.
types of leaders get better, trust and loyalty from the people that they work with.
Absolutely. I mean, there's another philosophy which I believe is, fail but fail fast, right? I mean, go do
Mm-hmm.
what, I mean, go experiment. I think that headroom of failing, headroom of experimenting is so important. If a leader does not give you that provision to go and experiment, it becomes so mundane, right? There's no way you can grow. I mean, that's the reason even I feel that I'm so fortunate enough to work for the firm I work for here at EXL, because my boss at least lets me experiment, right? Go do whatever you want, figure out what you want. It doesn't matter if you want to work for EXL, you want to go do something of your own, but he's always there with me. So that's the best thing about leadership altogether. I just want to bring in another parallel conversation. I know that you are not a cricket fan. All Indians are crazy about cricket, right? I mean we literally, I mean, and it's a religion for all Indians. So I mean, one of the examples I saw in the last cricket World Cup that happened a month back, and India became the world champion. So every time what happens if India loses, right? If we lose a final, always the coach of the cricket team comes and talks through in front of the press, right? That yes, I own it. It's my mistake. But this time when we won, the coach didn't come. He had sent the captain to go and talk. So that was such a beautiful message that I got, that this is leadership. When you succeed, send your people who were there. If you do not, you should go and talk about that. Yes, I own it and it's my shit, right? So this is so important, and I believe we keep on doing the same thing. And you being an amazing leader, I think your team is fortunate to have you, right? Uh, I'll ask a question, obviously, about lessons learned, right? It's not easy, Jamie, to become a CMO equivalent in a community bank within 20 years. People work for what, 45 years, but still it's not easy, right? So what are the typical lessons you've learned? I mean, I know this community banking space is scarce. They do not literally have women leaders. It's a male dominated, I would say, movement. Sorry to say in that way, but that's reality, right? But what are the lessons learned, you being a female leader across the past 2 decades and reaching to leadership of a community banks? So you can share a few lessons learned and a few nuggets for my audience, because a lot of people I know follow our page and regularly tune into our videos, who are aspiring leaders, right? They want to know more about things you've learned, the mistakes that you have done, which you've learned from, right? And they don't want to repeat it themselves. So if you can cover or talk about that, it'll be great.
Of course, I know. It's always like, how many things I've learned? What are the things that are the most impactful? Because I think it's a daily process of learning new things. I'd say something that is, for me, and kind of relating back to what I talked about with my leadership style, as far as, autonomy and not micromanaging people and trusting them to do, their work and, letting them have that freedom to, go out and try and experiment and fail, but fail fast, like you said. The other side of that is people can take advantage of that. And I didn't recognize that people would take advantage of that, because I felt like, you create a nice, safe environment for people. I feel they'll appreciate it. Unfortunately, not everybody. I think most people do
Yep.
appreciate it, but not everybody. Some people are going to take it that inch and run with it for a mile, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's balancing that and understanding that moment when you have to, okay, right the ship a little bit. And it's hard because you don't want to, I don't want to compromise who I am as a leader and become something that I don't necessarily agree with. But at the end of the day, we're all here to, grow the organization, to be successful. And you can't do that if not everybody is playing their part in the way that we've agreed to. So that's been a lesson, especially now in this new kind of newer hybrid work environment where the visibility is a little different. We're very fortunate here at Main Street Bank. We've taken a very open approach and let every department make their determination on the
Yep.
needs of what their employees need, how they work the best, what is obviously going to serve our customers the most effectively, and make that determination. But with that, you get a spectrum of performance based on many different things, and oftentimes it comes down to the individual. And so,
Mm-hmm.
learning to manage that in a way that still stays true to you as a
Mm-hmm.
leader has
Mm-hmm.
been, a challenging lesson that I'm still trying to,
Yep.
stay on top of and make sure that I'm doing what I need to do as a leader, but also allowing people that freedom to grow on their own terms and feel like they're owning it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. Another thing that I've learned, and this is more kind of in the banking industry, but any professional industry, is say I'm sorry when you need to say I'm sorry, but don't say it just to say it. I think that's something, and I'm sure I'm not alone, especially women in the professional environment. I think predominantly we have a tendency to apologize first,
Required.
even when there isn't the need to. And I think that sometimes can set the tone of I did do something wrong when in reality you didn't. So really kind of like thinking about the way that your language comes across, particularly if you are talking to, other professionals and you want to come across in a way that's, you want to gain their respect, their trust, and not have them have any preconceived notions about your performance or who you are as a professional. So that's something that I still have to check myself and say, why am I apologizing? Have I done something wrong? Or, is this the right language I should be using in this scenario? And certainly that doesn't mean not apologize if I do need to, but recognize that nuance in those conversations.
Absolutely. And Jamie, if we work together, I'm the last person to apologize for something which I'm not wrong about, right? I am very vocal. By the way, I wanted to become a journalist, right? So journalists never apologize. You're like, no. But yeah,
Very true.
if you're wrong, so obviously I'm more than happy to take all blame on myself. But if it's not, I'll do anything to go and guard and protect my team, because I don't know. It might sound very weird, but at times I feel that my team are my kids, right? These guys are my kids. I need to do something about them. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, so that's the way how I think, and it very much relates to the way even you think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you talk about a few obstacles, right? It's a very wrong word to use, but still, right? Being a female leader, you've faced umpteen obstacles in your life, in your career. Be it, raising a family, to, going to the boardroom, making decisions, taking that call, working long hours, working with difficult people around, right? That's another important thing. So, how do you think, should female leaders look at walking through obstacles, overcoming obstacles? I would say, right, in this organization.
Yeah, it's a great question, and everybody's situation is going to vary. So, I don't want to speak in absolutes for anybody. But what I found that's worked well for me, and my personal situation, professional situation, is really just make your connections with the people in your network that you find some alignment with, whether that be, certainly finding a mentor is probably one of the best things that you can do in your career. And whether that's, another female professional or anybody else within your network, whether it's in your organization or outside of it, I think finding somebody who you can align with as a mentor, it's huge piece. That's probably what I can attribute most of my, success and growth is having a really strong mentor professionally that not only was a great example, but also a wonderful sounding board so that I can, have these conversations out loud with somebody and get feedback that can help me, improve and take that to the next level with myself. So I think mentorship is, and I know it's a hot topic for many
Yeah.
organizations, but facilitating organic mentor relationships is huge for growth. So finding those connections, I think, is probably the number one thing that's helped me.
And it's not fluff, it's needed, right? I mean, you need to have a mentor. I mean, that's like very well taken. Without a mentor, it's very difficult. If you ask me, I mean, I would have not been able to do anything per se with my career if I wouldn't have a mentor, right? So every phase of my life I had mentors telling me what to do, what not to do. So this is, the cornerstone behind it. And I'm sure that, Jamie would be ready to mentor aspiring leaders, be it female leaders, male leaders, gender fluid, right? Doesn't matter. She'll be
Hmm.
ready to mentor marketing leaders if anyone reaches out to her on LinkedIn. So Jamie is there on LinkedIn. She's very approachable. She's very friendly. She's very good, right? She runs NEFMA. So guys, if you want to, seek genuine leadership, lessons, mentorship, I would recommend she's the perfect person to reach out, right? I mean, I'll tag her in my LinkedIn post. You'll find her. Feel free to reach out to her, right?
Thank you. Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
in the interest of time, Jamie, I want to just go quick. So that two or three questions I want to ask, right? Uh, Again, with the advent of AI, right now, everyone talks about AI, right? With 95% people not even understanding what AI is, but everyone wants to do AI. That's what concerns me at times, right? So, but still, I mean, talking about data, I mean, the decisioning has changed from a gut-based decisioning to a data-driven decisioning since the last few years, and now with AI coming into picture, there is actual tangible impact that AI has. There is benefits that a top line and a bottom line has, like for example for marketing, right? You have genuine impacts on developing of creatives, doing hyper personalized reach outs campaigns to your consumers, to your customers, basically even being compliant, reducing our time to production, right? Earlier you maybe it took around 30 days to design a campaign, launch it, strategize. Now it takes us 2 days because a lot of it is automated because of content creation. So generative AI is definitely a game changer that will happen, right? But as a whole, Jamie, I know you are moving to Salesforce right now. It's talking about earlier. You're trying to keep the house under check, doing data strategy right now. So how are you planning to use, or how are you using right now data at Main Street to drive better decisioning?
Yeah, I think you will find that a lot of marketers are always trying to search for that, the holy grail, if you will, of data.
Yes.
And how do you find that? And I don't know that anybody's gotten there yet. So we're all still going, but I think we're always making incremental improvements to either make ourselves more efficient, make our marketing more efficient or more successful, eliminate wasted efforts on anything that we're doing when it comes to marketing. So for us at Main Street Bank, we've really tried to drill into the data that we have on our customers um, down to the transactional level. So we try to look at, what is this person doing? What are their behaviors? And let's send them messages that are really, truly relevant to them based on
Absolutely.
that. So that's really been, kind of where we've been focusing a lot of our targeted marketing,
Mhm.
building those audiences for, specific purposes and really pulling in relevant transaction data that makes that message even more relevant to that person. Because the last thing you want to do is send a message to a customer that's not only irrelevant, but also
Yep.
looks like we don't know who they are. And now we've kind of diminished the trust that they have in us. So we really want to, capture that data. Um, I think the next phase of it is creating better automation in terms of our processes when it comes to marketing. So the less clicks, the less steps, the less things you have to access, platforms, programs, otherwise, the more efficient you're going to be with your marketing. So how can we set things that are just happening organically in the background that makes sense? So I know with Salesforce, it's all about building customer journeys and making sure that those are messages that are being served to the right people at the right time. So that's a big thing for us is catering to the right group of people with the right message. Whenever we talk about data, it always is helpful to kind of curb that conversation with, yes, data is great and AI can help us, in some
Yep.
regards or many regards to access that, better utilize that. But the person side of things cannot be forgotten. And I think that, we're all kind of spinning around in circles having these conversations about AI, about, how are we going to use it and in what capacity. Do we have a policy? Do we have like something built around this? And I don't
I know.
think yet in many cases on the community banking side, I don't think we've kind of made that determination. Certainly for us at Main Street Bank, we are approaching it as how can it make us be more efficient and how can it help our
Yep.
employees do their
Yep.
jobs better? But let's not take that human element out of the customer experience with it. And that's, our approach as far as, you know, making sure we're using data and in an effective way, but not leaving out the thing that makes us what we are and what we've built everything
Absolutely.
upon as a community bank.
Absolutely. I think, very well taken. It's more of being relevant to your end customers at the end of the day. Because, I mean, sending something that's not relevant to them, not serving their financial needs, is the worst possible mistake that a financial institution can ever do. Right? So, yeah, hyper personalization is important. And I think, within the bank, also improving the bank, improving operational efficiency, automating a bunch of things. I mean, there's a huge roadmap, Jamie, that's there. I mean, I appreciate that you at least are walking towards that journey and putting the ducks in the row. I mean, in short, right? So that's great. Uh, as a whole, where do you think is the industry moving right now? I mean, there are rate cuts. There are rate cuts. There are pressures mounting from the newer banks and the challenger banks. Community banks are challenged every single day, right? Despite of the fact that close to more than 50% of your uh, B2B lending happens with community banks, right? This is the backbone of the country itself. Still, there are multiple umpteen challenges that community banks face nowadays, and it's real. Right? So, what do you think? Is the community banking ecosystem moving to? Right? What are the? I mean, not challenges per se, but what is your prediction?
Sure. Yeah. And I think this is a conversation on a lot of people's minds. When I think about the role of community banks, banking itself is inherently a commodity at its core, right? And I think we recognize that. We all have kind of bank products and services that more or less at their basic function do the same thing, but what is it that then sets us apart at that next level? And I think for community banks, it's really about finding your niche and really leaning into that. And that's not to say that we should be, forgetting the rest of our customer base because, historically, community banks and credit unions, they were built for, the consumers of the community. They were built to
Exactly.
serve the needs of people who didn't have, access to banking, or they needed, a way to keep their money safe and do that without, being charged a whole lot of fees and not having the balance level that necessarily they need to. So that's something that I think is always going to be part of the community banking model. But in terms of when we think about how we invest our resources, because they're finite and we can't necessarily do everything and be everything to everyone, because I think that is kind of the death sentence, if you will, of an organization. Being everything to everyone all the time, you can't do it and do it in a sustainable way. So I really think that it's about identifying what is it that you're good at and do well, or who is it that gravitates to you? Who is that, whether it's a business vertical or a certain type of consumer or a certain type of group of people, and really leverage that and lean into it. And I think that's where you're going to find more of your community banks going towards, almost being that kind of known in their space as
Yep.
the boutique for this group, and then having the ability to serve everybody at large, but the focus really being on, that niche market.
I absolutely understand. So this ties really well. Ties really well. One last question in the interest of time. I know you're really busy. I don't want to keep you waiting on a podcast for more than half an hour. Usually my podcasts are 20 minutes, but this podcast we spoke so much and we loved speaking, right? It's already more than 30 minutes and I love it. I have one last question that I have. Jamie, I mean, this is a tribute to all women leaders, right? A tribute to everyone who has helped us grow, right? So, do you want to talk about or mention rather, a few uh, women leaders who've helped you grow and who you, I won't say owe anything, but yeah, it's more of a thank you note if you want to, end your podcast with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. No, I would be thrilled to do that. So I spoke about my mentor earlier, and today she is still my mentor. So our Main Street Bank's president and COO, Ellen Dorian, has been a huge supporter in my career growth, and I can't thank her enough for, she's the type of leader that I think we talked about this earlier, gives you that opportunity to, grow as your own person, that freedom, but also opens the doors. And I think that's, if you can find somebody in your space that can open doors for you
Yep.
and lay the groundwork, that is the type of leader that you want to be and the leader that you want to work for. And so I credit a lot to Ellen and what she's done for me and for other women in the organization and in the banking industry as a whole, because she's part of that, sort of first level of women banking professionals. Um, and she came up through marketing as well, which is um, a little less heard of in terms of, you don't see too many president CEOs in the financial space being
Yep.
marketing background. There are some, and that is awesome. It's not typical. So seeing that is also really inspiring for me because that's where I came from. So, knowing that growth is there, or that potential is there, it's certainly valuable to me. Um, so yes, definitely, Ellen. And then I think just a multitude. I think we already talked a lot about them, but the women of NEFMA have
Yep.
everyone that I have encountered at NEFMA has been, a peer, a leader, a mentor in some capacity. I think just having a network of people that are in a similar situation that you can, run ideas by and, vent if you need to. Sometimes that's it. But it's just having that network of strong professional women in banking that's been a huge, hugely helpful for my own career and my own professional growth.
This is great, Jamie. This podcast was amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you again for being my guest. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anurag. I love talking to you.
Absolutely.